Hey everybody, this is Jim and John back with episode 2 of Unique-ARs Builder Series. Today we're going to go over more tips and tricks to build rifles that can come out with finishes like this. These types of finishes can present some interesting challenges, and that is what we wanted to discuss today. One of the first things that we want to do when we are working with those kinds of finishes is be able to protect them. John, why don't you tell us about some of the different tapes we use?
Yeah, there are a lot of different kind of tapes out there to use. There's a clear tape like this. It's a very hard tape, but you can see through it, so you can protect the surface and yet see what you're working on. Here's an example of that. If I want to drive out this trigger pin, I've got the tape over the surface to protect it, and I can still drive it out and see what I'm doing underneath the tape and protecting the surface. Here's another example. With an upper, if I want to protect the surface for a roll pin installation here, that's how I'm going to do that with painter's tape. And this is how we're going to protect a barrel from working on, if we're working on the barrel nut, we're going to protect the barrel surface.
And we can also use some heavier duty tape to put onto tools if we want to protect surfaces from the rough finish of the tools, or to protect it when you're using a pin to drive it out. The next thing we want to do is figure out how we're going to hold on to our work. And so a lot of times we use these no more blocks. This is a good option to start with. It will hold securely in the vise and can hold your upper receiver in there pretty well. But what we have found to work better is something along the lines of this, one of these reaction rods. These securely go in the vise, and you can carefully put your upper receiver on, and then we always use a block of wood out at the end to make sure we get full support all the way across. You can adjust that so it's nice and level across there.
Stabilizes that nicely.
And then John, why do you like the reaction box better than the no-more blocks?
Well, this allows us to rotate our receiver in any position that we need it. If we need to work on the barrel nut here, or if we need to work on the driving in a roll pin for your forward assist, whatever you need to access, you can just roll it around 360 degrees and you have every surface covered here.
Okay. One of the talking about the wood blocks, we also have these wood dowels that we like to use. What do we use those for, John?
Well, for example, with the lower, we can use this dowel here to depress the button for your magazine release, and you won't mar that button, and you can work on that. If you have a stubborn takedown pin, you can use a little impact here with the dowel, and you can break that lock on the pin.
Okay.
And that's how you can use those.
Perfect. So speaking of the hammers here, we wanted to discuss, what kind of hammers we want to use when we're going to drive in pins. Seems like some people will reach for the biggest thing they can find to drive in the smallest pin they got. I don't think that's quite the way you want to go about it.
No, you can do some damage that way.
So one of the things we've found to get started with are these super handy roll pin starters. This is a great way to get it started. Get your pin lined up, you can put it in there, and that's a great way to make sure that you're not going to damage any surfaces. Then you get your roll pin, and one of the things I'm looking at here is I have the brass side and I also have this rubber side. If I use the brass side and I slip, the brass is probably still going to damage the upper receiver there. So what I want to do is make sure that if I'm going to use one that has both surfaces, that I use the soft surface to lightly tap that in. These types of pins, they don't take a lot of force, so this may be a little bit of overkill, but sometimes you get something that's a little stubborn and you need something a little heavier duty.
Exactly.
And that's all we have for you today. We want to say thanks for watching, and we'll be back next time with a little bit more details on how we go about building a spectacular rifle like this one here.
Happy shooting.